Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into today's video. And today I'm going to be talking about why Lindy Ruff is actually the perfect head coach for the New Jersey Devils. And it goes without saying that probably all of us were pretty upset in July when we got that Twitter notification about how Lindy Ruff is going to be the next head coach of the New Jersey Devils. But it turns out that this is actually a really good hire, and we should all hope for the best for this guy. But being that we had guys who were interviewing for this head coaching position, guys like Gerard Gallant, who was fired from Vegas, turned Vegas into the team they are now from the expansion draft. We had Peter Laviolette, who is a proven winner in this league. He's won a Stanley Cup, been to the playoffs multiple times, been to the finals multiple times. So you had these kind of guys out there, and we have Lindy Ruff, who was the defensive coach for the Rangers, and he was with Buffalo, and we know Buffalo stinks, but it's not so bad. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down in 3 different ways why Lindy Ruff is perfect for this New Jersey Devils job, starting with number 1. So the first reason why Lindy Ruff is perfect for this job is his experience. What John Hynes lacked in this team was NHL experience. He was the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins AHL head coach, and he had never coached an NHL game before he came to New Jersey. And I mean, now he's the coach of the Predators, but John Hynes was never an NHL head coach before. He had no prior experience coaching in the NHL, and the Devils really needed a guy that knows what it takes to develop players, treat players like they're supposed to be treated in the NHL, has NHL systems that are proven, and stuff like that. And he has an amazing track record. He doesn't have a Stanley Cup, but he's been a head coach for 19 years with two teams. He was with Buffalo for 15 years, which everybody knows him to coach Buffalo. And then he was with Dallas for a couple of years in the early 2010s. But something crazy, I was doing research for this video, and Lindy Ruff has been around the NHL since 1980. He was a player for, I think, 13 years. 13 years. He's played with Buffalo. He played with the Rangers a little bit. I think he played with Hartford. But that's just as a player. In the NHL as a coach, he's 7th all-time in games coached, with 1,493 games, which is insane. You have guys like Joel Quenneville, Al Arbour, Scotty Bowman, who are just ahead of him, and those are all-time legendary coaches. Even Barry Trotz of the Islanders is ahead of him, which is crazy. I didn't think Barry Trotz was around that long. But like I said, John Hynes was not the guy this team needed, especially with all of the offensive talent that we have, and that's hoping to be our identity in the next few years. John Hynes couldn't manage people like he needed to and coach them the way they needed to be coached in the NHL. So, and we all knew after the abysmal collapse, if that's what you want to call it, on the season opening game of the 1920 season against Winnipeg, anybody who was at that game knew it was over after the first goal went in, because during the game, they'd accumulated a lead, and we were like, oh, sick. This is awesome. This is exactly what we wanted. And then Hynes starts changing the lines while we're winning the freaking game. And that just goes to show you right there, that one example out of hundreds of examples over his tenure with the Devils on why John Hynes is not an NHL coach, and that is not happening. You keep what's happening. What's working, you keep it. Especially with this team. This team can barely generate any goals to begin with, and when you put up 4 against Connor Hellebuyck, I mean, granted, it was Laurent Brossoit, but still, the Winnipeg Jets are not a bad hockey club. Once you put 4 goals on them, you keep those lines. I don't care what happens. But anyway, this is not a John Hines rant video. We fired him. He's gone. Whatever. But not only has Lindy Ruff coached in the NHL, he's coached in Olympic Games and World Championships. He has a gold medal as an Olympic coach, and he's coached – no, I think he's a silver in the Olympics. But he does have a gold in the World Championship, which is good. And something you need from a head coach that typically goes unnoticed when they're players to start with. Lindy Ruff was the Sabres captain from 1986 to 89. So that just goes to show you how he's a leader. He has leader-like qualities, and that's what he needs to instill in this young group of talent, how to lead, how to win, and stuff like that. And he's coached in playoff games, and a lot of them too. He's coached in 120 playoff games, which is more than John Hines. If I do recollect, John Hines coached in 5, which was, I mean, we shouldn't have made the playoffs anyway, but that's a story for a different day. So that's example number 1, experience, and now on to number 2. Now, number 2 is arguably one of the most important reasons why Lindy Ruff was hired to be the Devils coach in the first place, and that's for his offensive mind. He was a forward/defenseman when he played in the NHL, but he is known to be an offensive kind of guy, and that's exactly what the Devils needed if they're going to be leading, have a young core of Jack Hughes, Ty Smith, Nico Hischier, Alexander Holtz, and that's who our identity is going to be for the next couple of years. Lindy Ruff is going to be the guy to get us there, and his teams have historically been pretty good at scoring. So in all of the teams he's coached, they've ranked first in goals for twice. One was with Buffalo, one was with Dallas. And so that just goes to show you he's not a fossil of a coach like Ken Hitchcock or like one of those guys who are just old as rocks who coached in the 90s and early 2000s who still think they have it when they don't. They really don't. So that's pretty positive around Lindy. He's done it in the 2010s, so he still knows what it takes. And his Buffalo teams in the early 2000s were actually not bad. They came up short in the playoffs a couple of times, only because of their pretty poor defense and some of the teams they ran into. I believe when did Ottawa make the Cup? Because they played Ottawa. Buffalo played Ottawa in the Eastern Conference Finals a couple of years ago when Ottawa made it to the final, and they lost against the Ducks. So that was 2007 or 2006. No, Carolina won in 2006, so it was 2007. Sorry for that tangent. The 2006-2000 Buffalo Sabres were one of the best teams that he's ever coached, and it's arguably one of the best teams to make it short of the Cup final. But from 2002 to 2011, Buffalo finished 10-5-1-4, 10, 11, and 9 in goals for in 7 years. So they were top 10, top 11 for basically 7 years in a row. They were high-tier goal scorers. And in a moment, I'm going to get to the players who he raised their career. He established them as NHL players. But like I mentioned earlier, New Jersey's priorities are Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, the 2 first overall picks in this franchise's history. And that's how this team is going to be built. We're going to have Nico as the two-way center, the Patrice Bergeron, Kopitar, Couturier, two-way guy who can shut down first lines if they have to and still accumulate a decent amount of points. And then you're going to have Jack Hughes be your 1 or 2 center who's all the flash. Like, he's probably a poor man's McDavid, I would say. I think Jack Hughes has a very high ceiling. He's flashed multiple times, last season. Even when he didn't score a goal, he's beaten defenders like it's no problem. Against Calgary, his 1 goal in Calgary, he's he's clearly got the skills, but it's all about filling out his body and putting it all together in a more consistent basis over the season. So the number 2 reason is Lindy Ruff's offensive mind, which is crucial in developing this team, what he was brought here to do. And next, I'm going to get into the third and final reason why Lindy Ruff deserves this head coaching job. So the third reason is his track record, his success over his NHL coaching career. And I'm going to break this down into 2 parts because we're going to base it off of, 1, his personal success, and 2, his success, how he translated it to players. I mentioned earlier how I'm going to mention all the players that basically he helped become NHL regulars and even NHL stars. So we're going to start with his personal accomplishments, and we'll go from there. So he won the Jack Adams Award. And if you don't know, the Jack Adams Award is the NHL Coach of the Year. He won it in 2005, 2006. And he's been a runner-up for three other times. In 2006, 2007, and 2016 with Dallas, which goes to show you he's still relevant. In all of his 19 years of coaching in the NHL, he's been to the playoffs more than half, 10 out of 19 times, which is outstanding. He went to the Stanley Cup final, most notably in 1999, when they lost to the Dallas Stars, the controversial foot in the crease goal, Brett Hull. Everybody knows about that. I mean, who cares? Why are we still arguing about this 21 years later? Like, I'm sure there's people that have completely forgotten about this, but then there's other people that are like, oh, his foot was in the crease. It's not a goal. Shut up. Who cares? It happened. Can't go back. There's been 20 other Stanley Cup finals. Like, who cares? Anyway, he's 6th all-time in wins with 736, which is that's a lot. And when you look at guys that are ahead of him, like the all-time legendary coaches, Al Arbour, Scotty Bowman, like we mentioned before, Joel Quenneville, just goes to show you what kind of company he's in. And like I mentioned earlier, he's coached at the Olympics. He was an associate's coach, but he still won a gold medal in 2010, 2014 with PK Subban in 2014 in Sochi. So maybe that can help revive his career after a horrendous, to say the least, year last year. And then the team that I was talking about earlier, the 2006-2007 Buffalo Sabres, won the President's Trophy. So that's how good that team was. But like I said, they came up short in the Eastern Conference Final to Ottawa, and then Ottawa eventually lost to the Ducks, led by Scott Niedermayer. This is just a little tangent. I don't care what EA does. Scott Niedermayer is a devil. You can never put him in a Ducks jersey and say, oh, Ducks legend, Scott Niedermayer. He won 1 cup. He won 3 in New Jersey, and he was drafted by the Devils. So that still gets me heated to this day. Anyway, so that's his personal success or his team success. Next is the players he helped become pretty good, have career years, established NHL players, and even some stars. Some of these guys I've honestly never heard of, but they had career years under Lindy Ruff at some point. A lot of these guys are typical household names. If you're a pretty big NHL fan, you just know of NHL players. So we'll start with the Buffalo Sabres. So in 2003, he helped Miroslav Satan's career. He scored 75 points. And in 2003, that's pretty good. I mean, I believe it's top 20 in the league for points. And if I'm going to be honest, never have I ever heard of Miroslav Satan. Well, I mean, I'm 20, but he was doing his thing when I was 3 years old. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. Maxim Afinogenov, he is someone who I have heard of. He had 73 points in 05, 06, so pretty good. He helped Brian Campbell's career. Brian Campbell, who was the defenseman for the Chicago Blackhawks, won 2010, won the cup there. He was on Florida for a couple of years, hopped around the league a little bit. Became a pretty good, fairly good offensive defenseman, not a bad one. Chris Jury, he spent time with Buffalo and the Rangers. Now's where we get into some kind of star power. Thomas Vanek had 84 points in that 2006-2007 season. That's his career high. We all know Vanek was arguably top 30 player a couple of years ago. I wouldn't say with his Detroit days or even with the Islanders or the Canadiens, but when he was on Buffalo before he got traded, he was kind of nice. We're not going to lie here, no cap whatsoever. Thomas Vanek was kind of nice. Him and a couple other guys that we're going to mention. So I think the biggest name in Buffalo, at least in Buffalo, the biggest name here on this list, how could we forget Danny Briere? Danny Briere had 95 points in that 2006-2007 season, and he became kind of a household name in the NHL, playing with the Flyers. He spent a little time with, I believe he spent time with the Canadiens, spent time with Colorado. I think he went back to Buffalo. But Danny Briere had a really nice season, very nice season under Lindy Ruff during that season. Tim Connolly had a career year. Drew Stafford had a career year. Devils legend Drew Stafford. So, I mean, we're not going to bring back Drew Stafford. So, it's cool. He had 52 points in 2010. Good for Drew Stafford. Derek Roy, who I know a little bit of him, heard him a couple times. 81 points in 2007, 2008. That's pretty good. That's pretty good for Derek Roy, who kind of don't know who he is, but I mean, that sounds 81 points. If we could get Nico 81 points, I'll be, I can't even tell you how happy I'll be. Another one we have is Jason Pominville. Jason Pominville was one of the best Buffalo forwards for a long time before he got traded to Minnesota, obviously. And even his revival of his career back in Buffalo, I guess that's what you want to call it. But the trio of Vanek, of Danny Briere, Jason Pominville led this team and was the core group of this team. I mean, granted, they're not centers, but they were very high-producing point players for a long time for that team. And even guys like Tyler Ennis and Tyler Myers later in their career, they helped shape what Buffalo was. And Buffalo was kind of competitive, even once Briere left to go to the Flyers. And they had the young group of guys. And not to mention that I haven't even mentioned the goaltenders that were there under Lindy Ruff. He had two unbelievable goaltenders. One was Dominic Hasek, who is arguably the second best goaltender of all time, because we all know who the best goaltender is. # Marty's better. But and Ryan Miller. Ryan Miller was so solid as the Buffalo Star. He made the Olympic team once or twice in his career. And he was honestly one of the best American goalies that the USA had to offer, and he was on Buffalo, and that's where he got started with his career. And Lindy Ruff was his coach for most of the time. So I know Lindy Ruff didn't really play into most of the goaltending stuff, but it didn't really help that Buffalo wasn't stout defensively either. But he had two amazing goaltenders, and that's what helped him through his time in Buffalo. So that does it for Buffalo. And now there's only a couple of names for Dallas, only because he wasn't there so long. And it's probably one of the most important three players that I can name on this list. Yeah, all of them are pretty good, but these guys are still in the league, and they're still pretty good. So we have probably most obvious is Tyler Seguin. He was drafted by Boston in 2010, the second overall pick behind Taylor Hall to Edmonton. And Tyler Seguin was a pretty good player. Let's be honest. He was pretty good with Boston. He was good. I think he was traded to Dallas one season before Lindy Ruff got there, and he was okay. But then he took off when Lindy Ruff got there, and he scored 84 points, which I believe is still a career high. If it's not, it's his second best of his career in the year after the lockout year, the 2013-2014 season. That's when Tyler Seguin really flipped the switch and was like, yo, I'm going to be a star now. We all knew it was coming because Tyler Seguin showed flashes when he was with Boston, but Tyler Seguin was going to be a really good player, and Lindy Ruff helped him to be that guy. Another guy that he's kind of fallen off a little bit, but he's still really good contributor. Jamie Benn. Jamie Benn, in a span of 3 years from 2013 to 2016, he had 74 points, 87 points, and 89 points. So he just got better and better each time with Lindy Ruff. And I mean, let's be honest, he hasn't really been the same since. The Stars management has very much questioned Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, their contributions to the team. And granted, they made the Stanley Cup final last year. They were carried because of their depth. They had great depth, great defense, and their goaltending was insane. Hudobin was the main reason that team got to the Stanley Cup final. And granted, Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin are very skilled, but they had depth guys. Dennis Gurianov, Esa Lindell, who are these guys? And they even had Corey Perry and Pavelski to take them there. But all in all, these guys really haven't been the same since Lindy Ruff was there. And don't get me wrong, Jim Montgomery and Rick Bowness are pretty good head coaches, but not Lindy Ruff. They can't get Tyler Seguin and Ben to where they are, and Lindy Ruff did. And then the last guy on this list sounds pretty good because of who we got coming in the system is John Klingberg. What I'm thinking is hopefully Lindy Ruff can do to John Klingberg what he did to John Klingberg to Ty Smith, because they play relatively similar games. They're very good offensive defensemen. Lindy Ruff likes to bring his guys into the rush, have the defense get involved, which is brilliant for the development of Ty Smith. Hopefully he can incorporate Ty Smith, get his development up so that he can be a John Klingberg-esque defenseman who can run power play one, be very solid defensively. I know Naz is going to be working more with the defense, but he was fifth in the Calder. He made the all-rookie team, and he's been one of the best offensive defensemen since he came to the league, with the likes of Carlson, with the likes of Brent Burns, and other offensive defensemen that I just can't think of off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But all in all, really, Lindy Ruff, you shouldn't be mad that Lindy Ruff is the coach, signed a 3-year contract in July. That's just enough time to get these guys developed, get them where they need to be, to hire a guy like Peter Laviolette, like Gerard Gallant, to get us over the hump. Lindy Ruff was brought here not to win a Stanley Cup, but to develop these guys, and that's what he's going to do. At least I have hope. I was very upset when the Devils hired Lindy Ruff, and rightfully so. I mean, without doing much research on him, he was the Rangers' defensive head coach when he doesn't even coach defense, and the Rangers weren't really that good defensively. I mean, Adam Fox has kind of emerged as a nice defenseman who can get into the rush a little bit and produce something offensively, but the Rangers really weren't that good defensively, and I was heated. But after doing some research, I am very happy that Lindy Ruff is the head coach of the Devils. So that'll be it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and that's it for me. So let's go Devils. Sean out.